Hello everybody, this is Adam, and I want to thank you for joining me on this painting time-lapse of a snow scene with a cabin. And I'm going to be doing a couple of different videos, trying some different styles over the next few months, so please bear with me. I'm just starting to get back into the channel. I took a bit of a hiatus, but now we are back. I'm going to try a couple of different shots as well. So if you're just joining me here, I am a post-impressionist painter for the most part, but my style widely ranges, but I find this style to be more therapeutic and more towards what I envision myself doing and stuff that my clients in the past have requested from me the most. And the hiatus was just for different reasons, and I think getting back into this was very, very good for me. And I just kind of want to talk about the process here while it's going on. So you'll hear me coming in every now and then to speak about the process, what I was thinking at the time, and overall my reaction to it. So in this part, I'm doing the background. I always start with the background going forward, especially with oil paintings. You always want to do something like that. And as I'm looking at it now, I can see that there was a drastic color change with the blue in the sky, and I'm a bit disappointed that I wasn't able to mix enough of it to do it the first time around, which was the pause in the middle there. But I think overall I kind of blended it out well and really sort of mixed it back in. Keep in mind I was away for a couple of months of painting just to do a hard reset on my mind, but you know, you gotta start somewhere. So you see in this portion of the painting, now I'm starting to get to the clouds, that the sky has been, for the most part, successfully blended through, and everything is looking really good in my eyes. And it still looks good even now, looking at it in the past. Now, when I got to the clouds, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to approach them, but I really just used the darker version of the blue that I used throughout the scope of the painting to really illustrate still that it has that monochromatic feel, and yet there's something more there than just the sky. Looking at it in hindsight, I might have defined the clouds a little bit better. Maybe when I do my next painting, I'll be a little more strategic in my approach to my cloud work. But I think as of right now, it looks okay. once again, when I'm doing a side-by-side critique, I'm going to always try to look at it as an outside perspective and make sure that I can learn from what I've seen here and develop a much better style, something a little more coherent. But overall, for the first painting back, I'm quite satisfied. Alright, so I really wanted to talk about how I got the mountain scene taken care of, because this was probably where I was the most nervous throughout the entire process of the painting, even with the actual cabin having more geometric shapes and straighter lines. I was very concerned about getting into the mountains because I wanted different sorts of textures and styles along with the mountains themselves, with snow and the direction. And in one part, and you'll see it later, I did make a little bit of a mistake with not extending the mountain that I'm just working on now further down, but with the mist that you will see here in a bit, I think I really pushed these mountains back into space extremely successfully, and overall, I was quite satisfied with the results. Obviously, improvements can be done with it, but I ended up liking the mountains more and more as I looked at it throughout the piece. And looking at it now, after the fact, it's still getting better and better. So at this point in the painting, I was sort of thinking within my head, how am I going to be able to push the mountains back into space a bit farther, because a lot of what's going to be happening in front is the same color as well. So the benefit of different colors to show that texture and that space difference is out of the question. And I decided to use a white wash where I just took down a titanium white oil paint base. Here where I am doing that with a little bit of mix of the blue, and basically brush it over using liquid to push it, or to dilute it even further. And then after a while, I would take a fresh brush and stroke either in or out more of that. And I really like this way to do it because it gives it more of a misty feel as well. And given a snow scene, I think that actually even added to the ambiance of it being a little more frigid. Maybe I could have planned that a little bit better, but that was a last minute decision overall to put it in there. But after I did all of that, I was extremely happy with the outcome, and I hope you are too. If you have any suggestions or anything for the next time I do a painting like this, I'm always very happy to read any critiques and suggestions for future references. And I'm hoping you are enjoying the video so far, and definitely interact. I love interacting with all of you, and it's something that I take a good amount of passion into. I think as an artist who's been doing it for as long as I have, critiques have really given me the edge on developing as the artist that I am even today. So when you are taking a critique, I think you should just not take it personally. It's only about the art. They're not attacking you. And I've been doing this for about 10 years now. So I've taken all the kinds of critiques, and luckily I learned that very early on in my career as an artist, that critiques are always a good thing. Alright, so now we're going to be getting into the trees, and the initial thing that I wanted to do with the trees was have them a little more stick-esque to where you can see more of the branches within it. But as I was painting it, I looked at it, I'm like, you know, I feel like having more of a fuller pine tree-esque look overall would be a better idea, not just to showcase and maybe hide some of the exposed areas within the canvas, because one of the mistakes that I did do during this painting was that I did not do enough in the background to establish that I could do anything. I left too many white spaces overall, but I think it was a blessing in disguise. And with the color that I used here, I just basically used Persian blue the entire time with a little hint of that cobalt, because I wanted that cobalt blue within the entire painting other than the actual snow cabin to really distinguish it. And overall, I was still very happy that I did it this way, because it gave me an opportunity to showcase even more of that snow-peaked areas around the pines themselves. So it actually gave the trees a little more depth, a little more, I wouldn't say personality per se, but given the space and the world that I made here, it gave them more personality. It gave them that it's a snow-covered tree. So I was overall very happy with it, and I wanted to keep it very monochromatic even within the trees, because it's supposed to be night. And when it's at nighttime, especially at this time, details that are so close in color are not going to be seen. So as you'll continue to see myself working through all of the trees, I left a lot of those details out, and it actually really helped with giving the ambiance of evening. That's just me personally speaking, but I want to hear from you once again. What do you think about the trees? Do you think I could have done something different? Do you think I pulled it off well? I'm personally very satisfied with it, but let me know in the comments. So now we're going to be going into the foreground of the painting itself. Now, I wanted to do it this way because, number one, as you see here, I actually started to plan out how I wanted this cabin to look very roughly to make sure that the dimensions are at least somewhat accurate. And I usually do that on purpose, and I'll use a different color than what I'm actually going to use because then that blue starts blending into it very mildly, and it really works out well, and you'll probably see that in the coming parts of this painting. But I wanted to start with the foreground because the cabin and everything, like the fence that I'm going to be adding in, are placed on top of the actual snow cabin area, and I wanted to make it look like it's sitting on top instead of trying to manipulate around the actual cabin when it's completed, so it gives it that heavier vibe. And I think I pulled that off very successfully. I was overall satisfied when I added in the highlights, and you'll see that here in a bit. When I added in the highlights, I was very satisfied on how the snow in front of it worked. It really gave it that heaviness, and it gave it that snowy feel that I was really going for here. And when you see the cabin in contrast of this more of a cobalt blue, you'll really it'll really feel warm, and that was really what I was going for. Okay. So here's where I start working on the cabin, and right when I was starting to work on it and mixing the color for the actual cabin, I sort of realized that I probably should put some snow on the roof of the actual cabin itself to put it into the environment a little bit better than what I was going to do. So I did that. And you'll see something here that I did accidentally, actually, that I changed the actual formation of the cabin to have a patio-esque area on it. And that was just because I made that one mistake. And what I love about oil painting is that it's so easy to change around a plan in case of a mistake, that it really lends to my creative visions a little bit better, because as I'm going, I always am thinking of new ideas and different ways to interpret what I'm really going for. So I was very happy that I made this decision, because it really gave this cabin also a little bit of character other than just a standard 4 walls, roof, whole 9 yards cabin. It gave it a little bit of a different shape. I probably could have done that a little bit better, but once again, happy accident. All right, so now you're gonna see me working on the cabin itself. Now, because the burnt umber is burnt umber, it took a couple of different layers to really get the textures and the feel that I really wanted in there. So I wasn't necessarily too worried about the windows per se. I was really more so about laying in the color and letting it set. And you will see the evolution on how the windows keep going and everything like that. But I kind of want to explain how I do general buildings for the most part. So I'll do a lighter, I usually do it in like a wash-esque style anyway, where I'll do layer upon layer of the actual building to really give that heaviness to the building itself. And then I'll pop in textures in the direction on which way the walls are working. And then after that, I'll add in shadows and highlights. Some artists do it very differently. Some artists just kind of paint the whole thing all in one sitting. Especially with a building, I like to take my time on it, really develop that character, and really develop the certain ambiance that I was going for here, because once again, I was sort of kind of hanging loose and dry, and I'm usually not the best at windows, so I wanted to give myself an opportunity to clean those up as time progressed. So by the end of the actual part, and I'll explain to it one more time when we pop in those highlights from the windows, because those will be also very interesting, that the windows really start to develop into something much, much different as time progressed. So don't worry about these right now. So you'll see here now I'm starting to add in the textures of the cabin, and I explained to it very briefly a couple of minutes ago on how I do this. Now, especially given a cabin texture, I went straight black and created the little slits around. And being a post-impressionist painter, I really like the fluidity of even geometric shapes that I can get with that. So, and you know, with the doors and everything like that as well, I really wanted to push those back into space and really make them. Looking at it as a hindsight and looking at it as the painting, I would have liked to have pushed that background even further back, but it is what it is. I still think it turned out really, really good. And as you'll be watching this, you'll see me adding in more and more of that wood texture as time goes on. I only use black in this circumstance just because I wanted to still give the impression of it being the very late evening up to night. So I always try to keep it darker and then just pop in the highlight very, very minimally at the very end, because I wanted to showcase that, oh, the light is bouncing off of the snow and back onto the building itself. Very, very subtly. So you'll see that here in a little bit. Okay. All right, so this is where I added in the highlights. As you can see, I added a yellow. I use a lemon yellow and the burnt umber combination wash on there because I wanted to give that cabin light a little more like that amber flare. So I did it that way. And then I just added in the straight lemon yellow on that. And you'll see me put in the signature and everything here in a little bit. I use a wax seal on all of my paintings. That's my signature, and I think it's really, really cool. So I want to thank you all once again for listening to the commentary and enjoying the painting. If you enjoyed the video or have any suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel and check out all of my social medias. This painting will most likely be available for purchase if you kind of want to check it out. I will let you know with a link in the description or anything like that. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.